It's Fired Up Friday, and welcome to the Bad Influence Podcast with yours truly, Bjordan Banderas. Let me start today's episode by saying this. The dream isn't the problem. The person you're refusing to become in order to achieve it is. You've got the vision. You've had it for a while now. It lives in you like a fire that won't fully go out, no matter how many times life throws water on it. And that fire, that persistent, stubborn, won't let you sleep fire, that's not random. That's not just ambition. That is a signal from the deepest part of you that you were built for something more than what you're currently living. And you know it. Yes, you do. You feel it every morning when you wake up, and the first thing that hits you is the gap between where you are and where you know you're supposed to be. That gap has a weight to it. You carry it with you everywhere. Into the job that doesn't light you up. Into the conversations where you're physically present, but mentally already somewhere else. Somewhere bigger. Somewhere that actually feels like yours. Into the quiet moments at night when the noise dies down and the dream gets loud again. And here's the thing. You don't have a dream problem. Dreaming is easy. Dreaming is free. Dreaming costs you nothing and asks nothing of you. The problem is what happens the moment the dream requires you to actually change. Because that's where you stop. Yes, you do. Right there. At the exact threshold where the vision demands a transformation, you find a reason to wait. You call it not being ready. You call it needing more time, more money, more clarity, more confirmation. You call it being smart and strategic and patient. But be honest right now. That's not strategy. That's fear with a business plan. And it has been costing you more than you are willing to admit. Yes, it has. Because the dream doesn't age well on the shelf. It doesn't. Every year it sits there, unlived, unpursued, untransformed into reality. It gets a little heavier and you get a little more used to the weight. Until one day, the weight just feels normal. Until one day you stop calling it a dream and start calling it a fantasy. Until one day you look at someone else living the version of the life you planned for yourself, and instead of feeling activated, you feel resigned. And that resignation, that quiet surrender dressed up as acceptance, that is the most dangerous place you can live. Because it doesn't announce itself. It just slowly becomes the story you tell yourself about who you are and what's possible for you. And today, we burn that story down. Here's what happens. Nobody told you that transformation was part of the deal. Think about that. You were sold the dream without the disclaimer. You were shown the destination without anyone explaining what you'd have to become to actually get there. So, you fell in love with the vision. You fell in love with the result, the outcome, the finished version of the life you want. But nobody sat you down and said, the biggest obstacle between you and the life, and that life, is not the market, not the competition, not the timing, not the resources. It's the current version of you. The habits you're protecting, the comfort you're addicted to, the identity you've built that doesn't match the life you claim you want. And when the work started demanding that you change, really change, you did what most people do. You negotiated. You found the version of pursuit that didn't require too much disruption. The version that let you keep the same routine, the same circle, the same patterns, and just add a little hustle on top. And when that didn't produce the result, you concluded that the dream was harder than you thought. Not that you were less changed than you needed to be. That's the conditioning talking. Because here's where it started. Somewhere early in your life, you learned that who you are right now should be enough. Maybe you were told not to get too big for your boots. Maybe ambition was treated as arrogance in the environment you grew up in. Maybe the people around you were comfortable with ordinary, and anything that pointed toward extraordinary made them uncomfortable. And their discomfort became your ceiling. You learn to want quietly, to dream privately, to keep the vision small enough that it didn't threaten the people around you. I've been there. And you got so good at making yourself fit that you started believing the smaller version of the dream was actually yours. But that's not truth. That's adaptation masquerading as acceptance. Or maybe it went the other way entirely. Maybe you tried once, really tried, and it didn't work. You put yourself out there. You took the risk. Yes, you did it. You bet on yourself for the first time, and it fell apart. Not because you weren't capable, but because you weren't ready. Yeah, you weren't ready because the timing was off, because you needed more reps, more resilience, more refinement. But nobody explained that failure is not a verdict. Nobody told you that the first attempt is almost never the arrival. It's the education. It's true. So when it fell apart, you took it personally. You made it mean something about your worth, about your capability, about your right to want what you want. And you quietly step back from the edge. Not all the way. You kept the dream alive, but you stopped putting your full weight on it. Oh, yes, you did. You started pursuing it with one foot in and one foot out. Just enough effort to feel like you're trying. Not enough commitment to actually risk failing again. And that half measure became your default. But let me tell you this. That's not a strategy problem. That's a wound running the operation. Oh, yes, it is. And here's where it lives in your body. Every time you sit down to do the real work, the work that actually moves the needle, there is a physical resistance that rises, a tightening, a pull toward distraction, a sudden interest in everything except the thing that matters most. That's not laziness. That's a nervous system that learned to associate bold action with danger, with rejection, with embarrassment, with the specific pain of trying hard and coming up short in front of people who were watching. So it protects you the only way it knows how. It makes the work feel harder than it is. It makes the couch feel more reasonable than the grind. It makes tomorrow feel like a smarter starting point than right now. And you follow it. Not because you're weak. Because you're human and your nervous system is doing exactly what it was conditioned to do. But here's what the conditioning never accounted for. You are no longer the person who got hurt the last time. You are someone who has been forged by everything that came after. And it's time to start acting like it. Your body is carrying the weight of the unlived dream. not metaphorically, physically, right now, in this moment, in the way you're sitting right now, in the way you're breathing, in the tension that has become so familiar, you stopped noticing it years ago. Feel your chest. Is there an openness there? A lightness that comes from knowing you gave everything you had today? Or is there a tightness that comes from knowing you didn't? That specific tightness, the one that shows up at the end of a day where you play small, that's not stress. That's your body registering the distance between who you are and who you know you're supposed to become. And it logs it every single day. Yes, it does. Every day you choose comfort over commitment, your body writes it down. Every day you choose distraction over discipline, your body writes it down. Every day you sit with a dream and do nothing about it, your body writes it down. And the ledger gets heavy. Think about Sunday nights. That specific feeling that creeps in around 7 or 8 o'clock when the weekend is ending and the week is about to begin. That low-grade dread. That vague anxiety that doesn't have a clear explanation. Most people call it hating Mondays. That's not what it is. That's your nervous system confronting the gap one more time. Another week is starting. Another 7 days of potential is about to either be used or wasted. And somewhere deep in your body, you already know which one is more likely. And that knowing creates a knot in your stomach that no amount of Sunday relaxation can untangle. Feel your jaw right now. Is it loose? Is there ease in your face? Or are your teeth pressed together in that permanent low-grade brace that you've just accepted as your resting state? That clenched jaw is the physical signature of a person who is constantly managing the tension between what they want and what they're actually doing about it. It's the body holding pressure that has nowhere to go because you won't release it through action. So it stays in the muscle. Oh, yes, it does. Think about your sleep. Not just the hours, the quality. Do you wake up restored, clear, ready to attack the day with everything you have? Or do you wake up already behind? Already tired before the day begins? That exhaustion before the alarm even goes off, that's not a sleep problem. That's the weight of carrying an unlived potential through every hour, including the ones you're supposed to be resting. Your mind doesn't clock out just because your body is horizontal. It keeps running the calculation. It keeps running the gap. The time passing. The version of the life you want that is either getting closer or drifting further depending on what you do tomorrow. And that calculation runs all night long. And you wake up tired from a math problem you were never supposed to be solving in your sleep. Think about the restlessness. The inability to be fully present in anything that isn't the dream. You're at dinner, but you're not at dinner. You're in the conversation, but you're not in the conversation. It happens. There is a part of you that is permanently somewhere else. In the future, in the vision, in the version of your life that hasn't happened yet. And that split, that constant division of your attention between where you are and where you want to be, drains you in a way that nothing else does. Because you're not fully anywhere, not fully present in the life you have. Not fully committed to the life you want. Suspended between the two. And that suspension, that permanent state of almost, is the most exhausting place a human can live. It's time to look at what this is actually costing you. Not the version of the cost you've been willing to acknowledge. The real version. Oh yes, we're going to go deep now. I'm talking about the full version. The one you've been avoiding by staying busy enough to never have to sit with it completely. Let's start with time. Because time is the one thing in this conversation that cannot be argued with. Every day that passes without you moving toward the transformation the dream requires is a day you don't get back. It's not a setback, not a delay. It's just gone. Permanently subtracted from the total. It is. And you've been telling yourself that you have time. That you'll start when things settle down. When the kids are older. When the debt is lower. When the job changes, when the season shifts, right? But here's what nobody wants to say directly. The conditions are never going to be perfect. The perfect moment is a story you've been telling yourself to make the waiting feel responsible instead of what it actually is. Fear with a calendar. And while you wait for the perfect moment, the clock doesn't wait for you. Think about the version of yourself 5 years ago. Did that version have the same dream? Did that version tell themselves the same things you're telling yourself right now? Probably. Not yet. Almost ready. Just a little more time. And here you are. 5 years later. Same dream. Bigger gap. Less time. And if you stay on this exact path, where will you be in 5 more years? Be honest. Be really honest with yourself. Because the trajectory doesn't lie. The direction you're moving right now, multiplied by 5 years, shows you exactly where this ends. And that destination is not the dream. That destination is regret. Oh, yes, it is. Not the loud, dramatic kind that announces itself. The quiet kind. The kind that shows up in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday when you're doing something completely mundane and a thought cuts through everything like a blade. What if I had actually gone for it? That thought. That specific thought is the shadow you're building right now with every day you choose comfort over commitment. Now look at what you're doing to the people watching you. Because you are not just living this for yourself. There are people in your life, maybe children, maybe a partner, maybe younger versions of people who look up to you, who are watching how you handle the gap between your dream and your reality. And what are they learning? Yeah, what are they learning? They're learning that dreams are things you talk about, not things you transform yourself to achieve. They're learning that at some point, at the point where the dream gets hard and the transformation gets uncomfortable, you find a reason to stop. And they will apply that lesson to their own lives. Your ceiling becomes their starting point. Not just your ceiling for success. Your ceiling for what's worth fighting for. Your ceiling for how much discomfort is acceptable in the pursuit of something real. Think about that weight. The people who love you are not just watching your outcome. They are absorbing your standard. And right now, your standard is telling them that the dream is negotiable. There is a cost that goes far beyond you. Now, look at your identity. Not your identity on paper, not the version you present to the world, the one you live with privately. The one that knows the difference between what you say you are and what you actually do. Every time you quit on yourself, that internal identity takes a hit. Not a visible hit. Not anyone else can see. But you feel it. In the way you talk about your goals in conversations. A little more carefully, a little more hedged, a little less certain than you used to be. In the way you react when someone else achieves something you wanted. The flash of something that isn't quite jealousy, but isn't quite inspiration either. In the way you've started to preemptively lower the dream before you even share it. Scaling it back before anyone else gets the chance to doubt it. Because some part of you already doubts it first. That's what years of not following through those to the way you see yourself. It erodes the belief from the inside. Slowly. Quietly. Without a single dramatic moment. Just 1,000 small surrenders that add up to a man who stopped trusting himself. And a man who doesn't trust himself cannot execute at the level the dream demands. Because execution requires belief, and belief requires evidence. And the only evidence that builds real self-belief is action. Repeated, consistent, uncomfortable, transformative action. The kind you've been avoiding. And here's the deepest cost of all. The version of you that exists on the other side of the transformation, the one who did the work, faced the fear, changed what needed to change, and build what needed to be built, that version is waiting. Has been waiting. And every day you stay the same, that version waits one more day to exist. And the world waits one more day to feel what only you were built to give. Now we shift, not away from the pressure, through it. Because everything we just covered, the time, the erosion, the people watching, the version of you that's been waiting, that is not a sentence. That is a starting point. The moment you decide to actually see it clearly is the moment you stop being ruled by it. And somewhere inside you, right now, something already knows it's time. Not tomorrow, not after the next sign, not when the fear finally goes away. Now, right now. Because here's the truth about transformation that nobody puts on a motivational poster. You don't transform and then pursue the dream. You pursue the dream and the transformation happens in the pursuit. The changing doesn't happen before the doing. It happens because of the doing. Every rep, every rejection, every day you show up when everything in you says, it's not worth it. That is where the new version of you gets built. Not in the planning, not in the preparation, not in the vision board and the journal and the podcast consumption. In the field. In the actual arena where the work gets done and the resistance gets faced and the person you need to become gets forged. So let's talk about what transformation actually demands. Because it's not what you think. It is not. It's not a complete overhaul of your entire life overnight. It's not quitting everything and going all in on the dream in a single dramatic moment. That's not transformation. That's theater. Real transformation is smaller than that and harder than that at the same time. It's the decision you make at 6 in the morning when the alarm goes off and the bed is warm and every reasonable part of you says 5 more minutes. But you get up anyway. It's the moment in the middle of the work when it stops feeling inspired and starts feeling like a grind, and the old you would have taken that as a sign to stop. But you keep going anyway. It's the conversation where you have to tell someone close to you that you're choosing the dream over the comfortable routine you've shared. And you know they won't understand right away. You have it anyway. Transformation is 1,000 anyway moments stacked on top of each other, and each one changes you a little more. Each one sends a signal to your nervous system that the old program is being replaced. That bold action doesn't end in destruction. That discomfort is not danger. That the other side of resistance is not a cliff. It's the next level. And as those signals accumulate, the body changes. The chest that was tight, it starts to open. The jaw that was clenched, it starts to release. The restlessness that came from living in the gap, it starts to convert into momentum, into the specific energy of a person who is finally moving in alignment with what they were built for. That energy is unmistakable. You felt it before. In the moments when you were fully locked in, fully committed, fully present in the pursuit. That feeling wasn't luck. That was you, the real you, briefly breaking to the surface. And when you stop treating transformation as optional, that feeling stops being occasional. It becomes your baseline. Now, let's talk about the dream itself. Because the dream needs to stop being a destination and start being a direction. A destination keeps you waiting until you arrive. A direction keeps you moving even when the arrival feels far away. And a person who is always moving, always transforming, always building, always becoming, is not someone the dream can outrun. You stop chasing it and start growing into it. That's the shift. From dreamer to builder. From planner to executor. From the person who has the vision to the person who has the scars from actually pursuing it. Because the scars matter. Every scar from a real attempt at the dream is evidence that you were in the arena. And the person with arena scars has something that no amount of preparation can manufacture. Proof that they don't break. Proof that the resistance didn't stop them. Proof that the fear show up and they move anyway. That proof becomes the foundation of an unshakable belief in yourself. An unshakable self-belief is the single most powerful asset you can bring to the pursuit of anything worth building. So here's your standard. From this moment forward, you don't need a goal. You don't need a plan. You need a standard. And here it is. You transform first, not perfectly, not completely, but consistently. Every single day. You do something that the old version of you would have found a reason to skip. Every single day, you choose the version of yourself that dream requires over the version of yourself that the comfort is protecting. Every single day, you get a little less like the person who was stuck and a little more like the person who is unstoppable. That's the standard. And it's not negotiable anymore because you've spent enough time negotiating with yourself. You've had enough conversations in your own head where the fear made a compelling argument and you agreed with it. That negotiation is over. The fear doesn't get a seat at the table anymore. Not because it disappears. It won't. But because you stop waiting for it to leave before you move. You move with it. You feel it in your chest and you take the step anyway. You feel it in your stomach and you make the call anyway. You feel it in your jaw and you show up anyway. That is what relentless actually means. Not fearless. Relentless. Not the absence of doubt. The refusal to be stopped by it. And you are built for that. Not someday. Right now. The DNA of someone who doesn't quit is already in you. It shows up every time you came back after a setback. Every time you kept the dream alive when the logical thing was to let it go. Every time you felt the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and instead of going numb, you felt it. That feeling is not weakness. That feeling is the engine. And it's been running this whole time, waiting for you to finally put it in gear. So, put it in gear today, not Monday, not the first of the month, not after the next thing settles down. Today, you decide that the transformation is no longer optional. Today, you decide that the dream is not a someday. It is a direction you walk in every single day, regardless of how you feel. Today, you decide that the version of you the dream requires is not a future person. It is who you are becoming right now in this moment. And if this episode lit something up in you, if something in here cracked the comfortable lie you've been living and reminded you of what you're actually capable of, hit that subscribe button because every single Friday we come back to this exact place. The place where the excuses end, where the transformation begins, where dreamers become builders and vision becomes reality. This is not a podcast for people who are comfortable with ordinary. This is a podcast for people who are relentless enough to become extraordinary. Think about what is waiting on the other side of the transformation you've been postponing. Not just the achievement, the person. The version of you who went through the fire and came out the other side sharper, stronger, more certain of who they are and what they were built to do. That version doesn't just have the dream. That version has become someone worthy of it. And that worthiness, that deep, earned, unshakable sense of your own capability cannot be given to you. It cannot be found in a book or a podcast or a plan. It can only be built, rep by rep, day by day, choice by choice. In the moments when it's hard and you do it anyway. In the moments when the fear is loud and you move anyway. In the moments when the old version of you would have stopped and you keep going anyway. That is where you are built. That is where the dream stops being a dream and starts being a life. You already have the vision. Now become the person it requires. And remember, the choice is yours.